Dr. Collins, what are you doing? A magic trick up there? I am. Magic trick? Oh, he's under him as money.
I guess. I'll get it done. Well, not really. Believe me, I'll be so little.
Right now.
You got the air conditioner.
Good evening, everybody. It's 7 o'clock. All right. And welcome to the Hopkinton Candidate Question and Answer Forum. My name is Bill Collins. I'm the superintendent at the Parishville Hopkinton School District, and I'll be the moderator for tonight's event. The goal of this forum is to ensure that Hopkinton citizens are provided with an opportunity to become better informed about the candidate's perspective prior to going to the polls on Tuesday, November 5th. So let's start by, it isn't easy to sit up here, let's start by thanking the candidates for being here. The question and answers will be conducted in a fair and even-handed manner. The audience has been supplied and will continue to be supplied with index card and pencils. Write down your questions instead of verbally asking. I will review the questions for duplications and simply disregard any questions that are inappropriate, fading, or gotcha questions. Before I introduce the candidates, please stand while we pledge allegiance.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, contrary to Bob's thought, I wasn't doing magic tricks. We were drawing lots to see the order in which the candidates would answer the questions. So, by the lot, Vicki French is first, Jeff Snell is second, Debbie Rust is third, Sue Wood is fourth, and Jody Wenzel is fifth. The candidates will be allotted up to 3 minutes to provide a brief opening statement about themselves and on to each question vote, unless the question is specific for a town supervisor or a board candidate. Each candidate's response time will be limited to 3 minutes. We'll keep the clock for them. Candidates will address me or the audience, but not engage in debate with each other. This is a question and answer forum. It is not a debate. We will conclude with summation and closing remarks, also up to 3 minutes per candidate. So without further ado, opening statements by Vicki French.
Yes, go first. Well, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Vicki French, and I am running for supervisor in the town of Hopkinton. I have lived in the town of Hopkinton my entire life. I was elected town clerk in 1982, and I've served the town of Hopkinton for 36 years as town clerk. 22 of those years I was budget officer. I am still a notary, and I'm very familiar with all the day-to-day workings of the town. Being a town clerk, you not only learn your own job, you learn a lot about the rest of the town and how it works, because most of the time you're the person that see when they come into the office. I have a good working relationship with other towns and county offices. I've held supervisory roles such as dairy manager, a produce manager. I was president of the St. Lawrence County Clerks Association. I was on the committee with the St. Lawrence County Treasurer to bring installment payment of taxes to all St. Lawrence County taxpayers. I also pursued the county treasurer for sharing of the surcharges paid on taxes with the town. I was awarded the New York State Town Clerk of the Year in 2009 for District 9. I believe that educating yourself in local government is very important. I have taken the opportunity to attend all education available. I have attended numerous local government conferences, St. Lawrence County Municipal Clerks Association meetings, New York State Town Clerk and annual training programs. I also think that it's very important that our board members educate themselves, and I will support having funds available in our budgets for any training. I have volunteered in our community for many events over the years. I've worked on turkey dinners, bicentennial committee, co-chair of the Hopkinton Summerfest, Maple Festival, the children's annual Christmas party, and supported the fire department during their events and other events happening in town. I would like to continue working to keep taxes within reason. Some obstacles we are facing in the future are decreased revenues. I'll work with the highway superintendent to make sure the highway department has what it needs to work safely and to come up with ways we could save money. I would also like to find funding for salt storage. I'm concerned that the county will be keeping more of the sales tax this year to make up for AIM money lost. I'm also concerned on what the county is going to propose for the distribution of sales tax in the future, and hope to be able to negotiate to keep our portion at least at the current level. I would also like to work with the assessors, county, and state representatives to get the STAR exemption back in the hands of local government. Since the state has taken over, there have been many problems with persons receiving their STAR exemptions. I would also like to work with the trail system, the county, and neighboring towns to get the Jones Road Bridge back opened up for our ATVs and snowmobilers. If elected, I'll do my best to represent all residents and taxpayers of the town of Hopkinton and to have a good working relationship with the town board so we can work together to make Hopkinton a better place for all our residents and taxpayers.
Okay, Jeff Snell.
Hello, my name is Jeffrey Snell. I was born and raised in Parrishville, Hopkinton. I graduated Parrishville, Hopkinton in 1990. I attended SUNY Plattsburgh and graduated degrees in sociology and criminal justice. I spent a couple years down south and realized that the North Country was the place for me, so I moved back. I bought a house house. We've been in 1997. I had the opportunity to raising 3 lovely children with my lovely wife. I had experience. I was on the Parish Hopkinton School Board. I was a shop steward. I had some experience in government. I got interested in running for town council because I was very vocal and concerned with the proposed wind turbine that Hanover wanted to install in our town. I felt that if I was going to put the time in research and speak my mind, that I should put the time in to run for town council. My concern is that all citizens be represented by the town board, not just a few. We definitely have a great town here. I don't think people realize what we have going for us sometimes. Again, I would like to see every citizen have a voice, not just a taxpayer. If you're a resident of Hopkinton, you should have a say in the future of our town. To that end, I'll put the time into research whatever comes before the board, make myself available to the public, and listen to any concerns.
Debbie Ross.
I have been raised in the town of Hopkinton all my life. I lived here for 17 years to follow my husband in the Army. I served on many volunteer capacities in the Army, also here. I worked on the Strategic Planning Committee at Perishable Hopkinton School. I volunteered at my children's school. I have been an active participant with the Maple Festival and also with the Hopkinton Bicentennial Committee. I feel like people's voices are not being heard in the town of Hopkinton. I have not been happy with the direction that the town is going. I feel like there are many things that can be done in this town. I would like to see the Fort Jackson Park, the work on it needs to be continued. It was started by my grandfather, and he had visions of it being a wonderful place, and it's just gone to the wayside, and I would like to see it more enhanced and more user-friendly. That's really why I'm here. And my voice is not the only voice on this board. My voice is your voice. How I feel about things is not necessarily your feeling. If you have something that you want to bring to me, I will definitely bring it to the board. I would like to see more things happen in Hopkinton than what has been going on.
Sue Wood.
Hey, I'm Sue Wood. I'm the current town supervisor. I was first elected to the town board as a board member in 2000, and I stepped up to the plate and took over as supervisor when our previous supervisor, Marvin, lost his unexpected death. And then I was elected to supervisor in 2015. During this time, I developed a deep understanding of the responsibilities of the board and the supervisor, and I understand the challenges that our town faces, and I'm committed to working towards solutions. I recently retired from Clarkson University, where I served as a budget officer for the David G. Ray School of Business. This involved managing budgets for not only the dean's office, but for over 40 faculty members and some student groups. In addition, I was responsible for the daily duties involved in maintaining an office that was responsible for the education of around 800 students. This provided me with the knowledge and the experience to handle the supervisor position and work collaboratively with the town board. Over the years, I have made various contacts with the offices of Senator Little and the Assembly Member Billy Jones. I worked with Senator Little and secured grant funding of $50,000 to assist with the foundation repairs for the museum. In addition, I secured $60,000 to assist with repairs to the town hall. Working with the board and the highway superintendent, we have managed to stay below the property tax cap and replace outdated highway equipment. I have also filed successful applications for court grants, which has assisted the town in getting our new municipal building and furniture for the courtroom. Public input is very important to me. I held office hours in the evenings to give individuals opportunities to meet with me. Now that I'm retired, I can increase those hours. I also have volunteered with many organizations in the town and outside of town. I'm also concerned with the sales tax issue and am prepared to fight it as far as we can go. As far as the Jones Bridge, I have already met with Senator Little and Assemblyman Billy Jones, and I have met with the county highway superintendent on the bridge. I've also spoken with Debbie Christie, who's in charge of the trail system, and we are looking for solutions so we can get it opened back up. So based on my qualifications and skills, I'm hoping I get your support on November 5th. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jody Wenzel. I'm running for Hopkinton Town Council. Before I get into my background a little bit, I would like to take a moment to thank everyone for participating tonight, as well as all of you. I know we're all very busy. This is a much better turnout than we were expecting, and I'd like to thank you all for being here. I may be a little bit of a new face to some of you. Some of you may have known me from the Wind Advisory Board. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was raised in the southern tier near Binghamton and came to the North Country about 25 years ago to attend Clarkson. I graduated from Clarkson with degrees in chemical engineering, engineering management, and I have a master's in business administration. I've lived in Hopkinton for the past 20 years with my son, who is now 13 and attends Parishville Hopkinton School. Several years ago, when the wind turbine project was really ramping up, I inquired and discovered how much of an impact it was going to have on our community. And I reached out to Sue and volunteered to be an alternate on the Wind Advisory Board. My alternate status lasted all of a week and a half, and due to people resigning and scheduling conflicts, I suddenly found myself the vice chairman of the Wind Advisory Board. This was a very difficult time for this community, and I was not fully prepared for what we were about to endeavor into when I started that. But over the course of many months and many heated conversations in this room, I developed a deep sense of pride in this community. And I think what resulted from that whole ordeal was a law that served the entire community. It spoke for everyone, not just a few. It took people into consideration and not dollars. And I want to make one thing very clear, because I know this is going to be a topic of this election and of concern for people. I am not opposed to renewable energy. I am not opposed to wind power, and I'm not opposed to solar power. And I know that my position on the wind board may have given some people that impression. What I am concerned about is one landowner's position or decisions affecting an entire community negatively. And I think that the law we created through that process represented the majority. And this country was built on representing the majority of the people, not just a few. And I really feel that we accomplished that through the law we put in place. I have worked throughout the North Country for the past 23 years, managing projects up to $15 million. I currently work as the VP of Engineering at a magnetics firm in Ogdensburg. I think our community is going to be faced with some significant issues very soon, whether it be the wind project that may or may not still be a concern, or the upcoming solar laws, sales tax issues. Thank you.
We're going to continue in the same order, so this question will go to everyone. We're going to start with Vicki French. How would you describe the community of Hopkinton?
How would I describe the community of Hopkinton? Well, the community has certainly changed over the years of growing up here when everybody knew everybody and everybody's doors were open and neighborly. I find that the dynamics of the community have changed somewhat. They are now, people just are busy with life and we don't neighbor as much as we used to. But when there's an event, we all seem to come together, and that's what makes us Hopkinton, because we are always helping out each other whenever needed. No matter what, you put your personal feelings aside and you help in an event or just something that's going on in town. So I think that we're a very good, close-knit community when we need to be.
Same question for you, Jeff Snell. How would you describe the community of Hopkinton?
I think at the current moment, our community is still healing from the divide that pitted neighbor against neighbor, family against family. I think we're on the right road. I wouldn't want to see that wound reopen. We have a great community, but we do come together. We help each other out. If someone's broken down on the side of the road, there's not going to be very many cars until someone stops to help it out. We have some great community members that do a lot for our town. I think they go unrecognized a lot. Again, I wouldn't still be here after 20 plus years if it wasn't a great town.
Okay. Debbie Rusk, how would you describe the community of Hopkinton?
And one word, family.
Sue Wood, how would you describe the community of Hopkinton?
I would agree with both Vicki and Jeff. It's a small-knit community. We come together when needed, and a perfect example of that was the ice storm of '98. People were going around helping people with their generators, and we do need, the community needs to heal, and I think we're on the way to healing.
Judy Wenzel, how would you describe the community of Hopkinton?
I think this community provides a very peaceful setting in a very tumultuous world, and I would like to see that preserved. Even when we were going through a really tough time, as Jeff said, pitting neighbor against neighbor with this wind project, there were still, those divides did not separate us entirely. I remember when it was getting really, really heated and there was animosity on both sides. Christmas morning, I was shoveling my driveway out because my plow guy broke down. Mr. Dick Aiken stopped with his tractor and dug me out, even though our opinions on the wind project at that time were very divided. And he got out, shook my hand, and said, "I appreciate everything you're doing for the town." And I think that describes what this community is perfectly.
The next question, Vicki French. What is your vision for the future of Hopkinton and why?
Vision for the future of Hopkinton. I truly hope that, like they've stated, that we can heal from the wind issue. I was a little concerned that the wind was brought back into the campaign. I felt like it kind of tore some scabs off wounds that were starting to heal. But I still think that we can still overcome that and we can move on. And that's what I hope we can do. And I hope we can make Hopkinton like it was before and make it a prosperous and wonderful place to live.
Jeff Snell, what is your vision for the future of Hopkinton and why?
I would like to see us maintain our beautiful scenic views that we have, our, give something to our children that want to stay here and not move out of town or out of state. Clearly we need some more job opportunities. We definitely would like to see some taxes reduced. There's definitely many ways to work on that. But again, I just want to see everybody prosper and get along.
Russ, what is your vision for the future of Hopkinton and why?
Well, I'd like to see it become more family friendly. Also, I'd like to see things that would attract people here. Right now, there really isn't a whole lot. As I said, I'd like to see Fort Jackson Park grow a bit, nature trails, perhaps a couple pavilions, things that would make people want to come here. It is a wonderful fishing site. A lot of people like it down there because it's nice and peaceful, and we have a lot of people that whitewater raft down there, kayak. It's just a nice area, and I'd like to see it become a little bit more on the map than it is.
Sue Wood, what is your vision for the future of Hopkinton and why?
I would like to see us continue moving forward, stabilizing our taxes, keeping our environmental things stable. I'd like to see Hopkinton as a place where people are trying to come in and build and live here and not move away after a few years. I'd like some more family-oriented activities, get the younger children involved in some of these activities.
All right. Jody Wetzel, what is your vision for the future of Hopkinton and why?
I agree with Sue. I think that we need to work to make this a place where people want to live and want to stay. I think we can take a page out of the book of what Waddington has done with the Bassmasters tournament, not to that scale, but look at some tourism. Look at some ways to bring people in. We have a great natural resource here in this scenery and the geography here, and it's not being advertised to the outside world. And do I want to see 50,000 people descend on Hopkinton? No. But I think we can do some things that will bring in some tourist dollars because of our proximity to the Adirondacks, because of our proximity to the St. Lawrence. And those dollars will allow us to do a lot more with this town and make it a lot more appealing.
Next question, Vicki French. What do you feel, if elected, your #1 priority should be?
My #1 priority will be starting in just reviewing the budget and seeing where we're at with things. I really would like to work on increasing the reserve funds and setting more money aside for purchase of equipment. So in the future, instead of always borrowing money, we can use the money from the reserve fund to pay for equipment and get rid of some of the debt. I also would like to, like I said, I want to work with the assessors in getting the STAR program back in the hands of the local government. There's been so many issues with it since it went to the state level that, it's taken control again away from local government. They take more and more. I would like to see us get that back.
Jeff Snell, if elected, what was your #1 priority?
My #1 priority would be that every citizen has the opportunity to be heard, even those that aren't willing to speak up. If they're willing to share what their concerns are, and that they be heard by the town board, so we ensure that we move ahead with everybody's best interest in mind.
Debbie Russ, if elected, what was your #1 priority?
I guess my #1 priority is to make this just a great community again, like it was before, and make sure that our children stay and be a voice for the community and not just the board.
Sue Wood, if re-elected, what was your #1 priority?
I guess my #1 priority would be going to the county meetings and working on keeping the sales tax issue the way it is, so they can't take that away from us. I do agree with Vicki, we need to get our local control back. And also, I would like to work with the highway superintendent and get a plan together for the equipment that needs to be replaced and start putting, as Vicki said, putting money away for that. We have been doing that, but we need to do more.
Judy Winslow, if elected, what will your number one priority be?
First, I need to familiarize myself with the inner workings of how a municipality works a little bit more. I have worked in the business world a lot on for-profit projects, but I need to dig a little deeper into the workings of the town. I am familiar on the surface with a lot of the issues facing this town, the sales tax issue, the solar law that's coming up, some issues with the highway department, but my knowledge of them is the same as most of you. It's from attending meetings and from what I can read. As a board member, I can get a little more insight into those and familiarize myself, do a lot of research so that I have the knowledge to make reasonable decisions. Additionally, as Jeff said, I think it's critically important to make yourself available to the public. For people that maybe not want to speak up at a meeting, that you make yourself available so people can express their concerns, and then you can take those concerns forward.
Right, the next question is for the two supervisor candidates. What do you plan to do to attract more business to our town? Start with Vicki French.
That's $1 million question. I have laid awake at night thinking of that question. I've asked myself that over the years when we do our budget. Every year we ask the same thing. What can we do to bring revenue to this town and increase our tax base? And I'll be quite honest with you all, we have not come up with that magic answer yet. So that's all I can say.
Sue Wood, what do you plan to do to attract more business to our town?
Right? We do have a number of independent small business owners, and maybe we could capitalize more on them and market them better and go from there. But we do need more businesses to come in and pay their share of taxes as well.
The next question is for everybody, as we start again with Vicki French. Are you able to represent the wishes of the town residents even if they are contrary to your own position?
Yes, I think I am, because I feel when you run for an elected office, once you take that oath of office, your personal opinion no longer matters. And when you sit at this table, you should remain neutral. You should gather information from both sides of every issue. It's your job to explore that issue, gather your information as a board together. And like I said, we need to make our decisions for the residents of the town of Hopkinton, not our personal feelings. We have to set those aside. They no longer matter once you take that oath of office.
Jeff Snell, do you need me to repeat the question, everybody? If you do, I will. Maybe we'll save time if I do.
I absolutely agree with Vicki. If elected to the town council, we have to represent everybody regardless of our personal feelings. There's no question that was an issue in the past. Who wanted what and how many people wanted it. I think absolutely, the idea of a straw vote to find out where everybody stands is a great tool to use to abide by that.
I agree. When you come through this door, your feelings, your thoughts they stay outside. We have to be I have to be more available to the constituent. It just divides things too much. And we're a voice for everybody, not just yourself.
Ditto. Yes, you have to leave your feelings aside, and I believe I have done that in the past. I've done my research. In the beginning, I'll go to the wind thing. In the beginning, I was leaning towards it. The more research I did and read all the comments on our survey from the people, I realized that I had to go with the majority, and that's what I did. So yes, I will listen to the people and put my own personal opinions aside.
I'm not really sure what I can add to all that, except to say that I agree. I can tell you my experience with government, specifically with Hopkinton government, is with the wind board. And by the end of that process, I had stacks of paper, honest to God, 8 to 10 inches deep from both sides. And I read every single paper that was given to me. There were things in that wind wall that I did not agree with. And we put them forward because that seemed to be what the majority supported. And I think that is critically important. I don't purport to have all the answers, but I can tell you that I will research the subject and make the best informed decision I can based on the input I get from the people.
Next question, starting again with French. Do you feel you will be able to cooperate with fellow board members on contentious topics, such as the industrial wind law?
Well, I hope the industrial wind law doesn't ever come back to the table. I'm supervisor, but I definitely can work with the board. I have worked with many boards and many supervisors over 36 years. I have sat here. I have worked with, I came countless supervisors and board members. So I think I've demonstrated quite well how I can work with other people, and I have no problem working with any one of these individuals.
Same question to you, Jeff?
I think that Sue and I, our relationship demonstrates exactly, there was one meeting that I was asked to leave the meeting. You know, that's water down the drain, and we moved on, and I have no problem with anybody at this table or in this room, and more than open to work with everybody.
I also feel that I can work with anyone. I've worked with various agencies throughout my lifetime. You don't always have to agree with them, but you do have to work with them. And that, to me, is the most important thing. In our lifetimes, we don't always agree with our friends or our families, but you have to live with them and you have to work with them. And that's just the way it is. And you have to put all feelings aside.
Based on my experience with working with 40 different faculty members who all thought that they were number one, I think I can work with anyone. 36 years of working with them taught me to listen, smile, and do your work. So yes, I wouldn't have a problem working with anyone.
I'm pretty sure I was sitting right here and Jeff was sitting right there. So we ended up, you know, agreeing to disagree on some points and agreeing to agree on others. And through that whole process, there were certainly voices that we did not see eye to eye on things, but yet we still got something done. And I think we came out with a very good product in the end. So I'm willing to listen to anyone. I'm willing to weigh any opinion, and I think I can carry that forward.
The next question to all board members. If elected, who do you serve? Is it simply the majority?
Yes, I believe it is the majority that would sway my vote to make a decision that involves the whole town. Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, you have to go with the majority. You present the research that you have, and you let the public let you know what their decision is, and we go from there.
I would first like to say, whoever asked that is a great question, because that really puts it at the heart of the matter out there. who do you really represent when you're sitting on this board? And I think that what Debbie and Jeff said is absolutely accurate. At the end of the day, you have to move forward based on the opinion of the majority. However, the minority of the population still has a voice, and the considerations and issues that they bring up must be considered. You cannot simply ignore part of your constituency at the expense of another part. And I think that's where sometimes we get lost, that it's either right or wrong in today's society. A lot of times you're either on this side or on that side, and what we've forgotten is that most of the time the answer lies somewhere in the middle. Yes, we have to represent the majority, but not at the ultimate expense of the rights and feelings of the minority.
I'll read this one twice. It's lengthy. Every rural community that enjoys a vibrant local economy and a good quality of life has developed a long-term vision and a plan and strategy for attaining goals to make their town a great place to live. There is state funding available to help small towns work with professional community planners to help develop long-term plans and goals based upon community ideas and resources. Do you think this is a good idea? And if so, how would you help our community tap into state resources so our town can define a long-term economic development, land use, and quality of life plan to work toward? Once again, every rural community that enjoys a vibrant local economy and a good quality of life has developed a long-term vision and a plan of strategy for obtaining goals to make their town a great place to live. There is state funding available to help small towns work with professional community planners to help develop long-term plans and goals based upon community ideas and resources. Do you think this is a good idea? And if so, how would you help our community tap into state resources so our town can define a long-term economic development, land use, and quality of life to work toward? You're up.
Well, first of all, I guess we would have to define what we want for economic development in our town, and that is not something that one person is going to do. It's going to have to be our entire board. It's going to have to do the strategic planning. I have had one thing that I wouldn't mind seeing happen in the town of Hopkinton is looking into starting a small senior housing project and tapping into some state resources for that. I would like to be able to keep our seniors in our town instead of them having to move to Fraser or Potsdam or somewhere, and just start out small with some 4 units or whatever, and go from there. As far as other strategic planning, like I said, I am like that we would have to work on as a board together, and absolutely we want to take any state funding we can get.
Jeff Snell, you're next.
I think we absolutely do need to give our town a shot in the arm, and if the state is willing to front money for any of those activities. We have some of the best deer hunting in the area. We have a trail system. We don't have anything like a restaurant here in town. There's definitely a lot of things that we have some prime building lots. A lot of them are being used as farmland. Some of the landholders decide to develop that. That could be a huge, tax base to grow on with new developments. And there's definitely a lot of ideas out there. We are, a beautiful area. There's the scenic nature of our town is what we need to grow and bring in tourists.
I think that we need to reach out to some of our representatives. I have never seen Bill Jones step foot in the town of Hopkinton. I know that Betty Little has been here, but our representatives are not coming to see what we need, and I think that we need to reach out to them. Today, I attended the Local Government Conference at SUNY Potsdam, and there are many agencies that are willing to help our towns out. And they're there. We just have to do the research for it, and I'm willing to do that. There's a lot out there, and there's a lot of money that is available to our town if we just do more research on it. And I would like to do that. And I would like to also maybe gather some people that would like to volunteer to help with our trails and our park down in Fort Jackson. There was a plan at one point when my husband was the supervisor. He had engineers and he had volunteers that were going to help him map out trails and so on down there. And I'd like to see that happen again, to bring tourism to this town. You know, you can't even ride a bicycle on the side of the street without worrying about getting hit by a car. You can't even really take a nice walk, a nice quiet walk. I'd like to see that happen here.
I'm in constant touch with Billy Jones and Senator Little. As a matter of fact, Billy Jones was just here about a month ago, and Steve Green, Highway Superintendent, and I took him on a tour of all the roads in town so he could see what we had to do to upkeep the dirt roads, and so that's his main focus this year, is to get us more money for our infrastructure. Senator Little has been very helpful in getting us state money for building repairs. She helped the fire department get a new fire truck, which I was involved with. So, yes, the state is there to help us. I have written grants in the past that have been rejected for bike trails, planting trees, that kind of thing. So we'll just keep trying, and hopefully we'll land the big one someday.
I think that investigating any and all grant and funds that are available from the state is an imperative for this community. If there's money out there, then we should be looking into it. Maybe all of the programs are not for us, but we at least need to be informed to make that decision. And I have liaison with state governments on various levels, not necessarily grant writing, but I have written permits, environmental permits for large-scale facilities. I have a lot of experience doing that, and if it's a matter of having somebody do the research and write the grant, then I would absolutely be willing to do that. At this point in time, I don't feel I have enough information on the programs that are out there, simply because it's not something I've been involved with yet, but it would be a priority moving forward, certainly.
About half of the questions are about something to do with wind turbines. So perhaps this one would be a good place to move to all of them. But to each candidate, what is your position on wind turbines and solar power for our community?
Well, first again. For me, first of all, I'm sorry that the wind issue was even brought into this election. I have no intention of ever bringing wind back to the table. I feel that the board before me has done their job. They've passed the law. It's on the books. That's where it'll stay. The solar law, I would hope that the town board is currently working on the solar law, that it can be a fair law that will allow our businesses to be able to use solar if they so wish to use solar, and our residences to be able to use solar if they wish to. My travels around town, there are many people in the town of Hopkinton using solar on their properties, and I really would like to see that continue, and we have to make sure that the law allows that to continue for our residents. And as far as commercial solar, I think it's important that we cite those commercial solar farms, if that so happens, that it still makes usable land. We don't want to throw something in the middle of a plot of land and then you have all of this residual around outside of it that can't be used for anything. So we need to think about where we're going to site these commercial farms if that happens. We need to think about setbacks and things? Are we going to make it so large that they're going to be in the middle instead of the end of the plot of land? So that's my feeling about wind. I hope it never comes up again.
First of all, I'm not anti-renewable energy by any means, but towns near us have come under the same issue with the new board and the wind law being adjusted. The fact is that the leases are still being paid. The wind company would not be doing that unless they had a game plan. As far as rooftop solar for individuals, absolutely. When you start growing to the size that Canton is proposing, I definitely pull back and question what that's going to do for our town, both economically, the long run, the potential for those panels being left there not properly disposed of. So I think there's definitely an issue. I think when those leases are no longer being paid, then we can put this to rest. But I definitely am not letting my guard down.
I feel that the wind issue is a dead issue. The law has been passed. We need to move forward and heal this community. It is not something that I am going to bring before the board. It is done. As far as the solar, I think we need to research it more and not just from Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, or we need to ask someone that works with solar on a daily basis what actually it's all about. Because I have no clue. I don't pretend to know it. And I don't think that anybody in this room knows everything about solar.
The advisory board, in my opinion, did a great job on getting a well thought out law. I'm not against wind, I'm not against solar, as long as we have a good law to protect our citizens and our residents. As far as solar, we are in the process of doing a law. We just visited the Clerk farm, got some ideas from that, and I'm sure we'll keep researching and doing our best onto getting a law that will protect everyone and make sure it's cited correctly.
As I said in my opening remarks, I am not against renewable energy by any means. I think Jeff made a very valid point, though, in that the leases that the wind company executed are still in effect. They are still paying those leases. And it's hard to come up with a reason why they would expend thousands of dollars a month if they did not have a plan moving forward. They could easily have canceled those leases and make the issue completely moot. That has not happened. So while we do have a strong law, laws can be changed. And I think that is something that we just need to be cognizant of as we move forward. Until those leases are no longer in effect, this issue has the potential to rear its head again. That being said, I'm not against wind turbines. What I am against is a few landowners being able to implement an industrial wind farm that affects 100% of this community when only about 5% of the community financially benefits from it. And I think the wind law that we put into effect was not designed to stop the project. The developer stopped the project. The wind law did not. The wind law was aimed to protect landowners that did not want to participate, as all laws are in all communities. I can't put a landfill on my property because it would negatively affect my neighbors, and there are laws preventing me from doing that. I feel the same way about this project. Everyone would be affected and only a few would benefit. With solar, I think we need to keep the same things in mind. I think solar is a little bit less imposing on our neighbors, but we need to make sure that people that do not want to be involved are not significantly impacted, either financially due to loss of property value or severely inconvenienced by destroying the scenery that they enjoy.
For all candidates, do you support or oppose changing the monthly town board meetings from the third Monday of the month to a different Monday to avoid the calendar conflict with the Parishville Hopkinton School Board meetings, which are also scheduled on the same third Monday of each month? And please give your reason why you would oppose or support such a change.
Well, I'm sure you all know, most of you know, my stance on that. Our board meetings have been the third Monday of the month for, I don't even know how long, for the months of February through December, the second Monday of the month in January and February. The third Monday of the month has worked for the town of Hopkinton. We have time to get our bank statements in, we have time to get our financials done for the board meeting, and I don't feel that we should have to change our meeting for someone else's meeting. If you run for the town board, you know when the meetings are, that you should make yourself available to what you committed to.
I disagree. I think that we should do something that would allow everyone to attend both meetings as desired. I don't see this as a huge deal. Traditions are changed all the time. So I would be in favor of exploring a change so that they don't conflict with each other.
I feel that the town of Hopkinton is the town of Hopkinton, and we should not be dictated by Parishville School. That these meetings have been the same time forever, and they should stay that way.
I have no problem either keeping the meeting as it is or changing it. It's what would work with the board and what works with the residents. Perhaps if we changed it, we'd get a bigger attendance at the meetings and we could get better ideas on how to run things. So I'm okay either way.
I have to plead a little ignorance here in that I did not know this was an issue. I think that we should hold the meetings whenever we can get the most community members involved in the meetings. And if that's not on the third Monday, then we should change it so that more people can go to both meetings. I'm sorry, that's kind of caught off guard by this one, but that's my opinion. These meetings are held for the benefit of the community, and we should hold them for the benefit of the most community members that can attend.
The next question, I'm merging several questions. For all candidates, what is your view on public input, citizen comments, and involvement in the town government?
Well, without public input, what would we be? I mean, it's very important to have public input in our decisions, that we are representing you people, the public. So we need public input, and we should be listening to the public. I have no problem with public input.
I agree 100%. The citizens should be able to speak at the appropriate time during a meeting and given the allotted time. That question.
Public input is very important.
Oh. I want to say it before I forgot. Sorry, write it down. I got it. I think that public input is very important. I feel like sometimes that the public does not really know what's going on until the end of the meeting. So public comment before the meeting, they don't really know what they're commenting on, other than maybe hearsay. I would like to see public comment maybe a little bit later in the meeting, especially when you're discussing new or old business, so that you get an idea of what's really going on. And that's my own opinion, because I just feel like public comment before the meeting, what are you commenting on? Something that's really not really very relevant. Now you can.
Public input is very important. As you can tell, I get very excited over public input. I believe that, we allow everyone the opportunity to speak, listen to them, and hopefully they go away feeling that they were listened to and that we're going to come to a solution. And I wouldn't have a problem moving it to the end, to the middle. Fine.
I think some people a long time ago who knew a lot more about this than I did said it should be a government of the people, for the people. And I think that is of utmost importance. If that involves moving the public comment to the end to get more input, so be it. But I think that we are here to serve at the public's pleasure, and that ultimately the decisions we make need to reflect the general consensus of the community. So public input is of utmost importance.
The next question is for everybody. Do you favor tax breaks for landowners where trails pass through private land?
I don't really know how to discuss that because I don't really know. I don't think that, I don't think there should be a tax break because a trail passes through private land. They don't have to allow the trail to go through there. That's entirely voluntary for them. I don't feel that the rest of us should have to pick up that slack. I honestly think that we have way too many exemptions in this society and that we're all picking up the slack for exemptions. Every time you turn around, there's another exemption. And if there's an exemption over here, we all have to pick up the slack from that, us taxpayers. So, no, I don't think there should be an exemption in the trail system.
I would agree. I would think that if the landowner either wants to do it or not want to do it, that would be something. I understand that associations charge a fee for trail use. If there's money involved, then that could be between the association and the landowner, not involving our taxpaying base as a whole.
I agree. I think there are too many properties that are tax exempt, and there's just, it just continues and it snowballs, and that unfortunately the senior citizens in this town are taking up a lot of slack that a lot of us cannot afford.
I agree with everyone. No tax breaks.
The part of me that is a landowner that has a trail going through his property says there totally should be an exemption. But all kidding aside, no, I would agree with the rest of the candidates up here. There should not be an exemption for that. I have part of the St. Lawrence County Trail that cuts through a very small portion of my property. They provide insurance coverage for any riders that traverse that trail, and I think that's fair. They reached out to me, I agreed to it. That's really the end of it.
For all candidates, what do you feel makes you different from your opponents? And why is that important?
You're up.
I don't feel like I'm different. I mean, we've worked together for many years. Sue and I have worked together for many years. So, I mean, we've supported each other through things, and I really don't feel different. I feel just that I think it maybe sometimes change is good for a town, and that's why I'm running. I just think that maybe sometimes we need change.
I don't know if it makes me different now, but I'm not easily. I'm not easily intimidated. I'm willing to speak my mind. I recognize the difference of being a citizen speaking your mind and being a board member. Again, I may have been slightly vocal as a citizen, but
I wanted to say that, but I didn't.
In my career field and whatnot, I tend to deal with stressful situations, think them through, and in the end, make sure there's hopefully a happy outcome. But again, I'm not afraid to voice my opinion.
I think we're all different in many ways. but I think that we all need to work together, and you know, I can work with anybody. Yeah. Yeah.
As Debbie said, we're all different. However, when you sit on this board, you need to put your differences all together and come up with the best plan that you can and work for it.
I would agree. I think we need to be able to work together, but I also think it's important to have different perspectives on the board. My background is a little different than the rest of the board members. My background is engineering and project management. I've been involved in some very large projects, have worked on some very technical products and projects in the past, and I think that's a perspective that may have not been represented before. Whether good or bad, it's just a different perspective, and sometimes it takes a new perspective and a new point of view, and someone who has not been involved in local government before to maybe breathe some fresh air into the community and get us on the right path moving forward.
So, candidates, you've been sitting in the hot seat for an hour now. Do you need more water or a quick break?
Vicki needs a break.
I'll go first, right?
All right, so I don't know, would it be fair, we could do another lot and
Oh, no, we're fine.
all right, do you want to take a quick break?
Sure.
Okay, all right, so why don't we give the candidates, like. So this time, Debbie Rust is in the first position, Vicki Francis in the second position, Jody Wenzel is the third, Jeff Stalin fourth, and Sue Wood is fifth.
Look at the draw.
Not always bad becoming one.
Okay, to all candidates, there have been rumors of zoning coming to Hopkins. Would you support zoning? Yes or no, and why or why not? We'll start with Deborah.
I don't think that zoning is a bad idea, but I know that over the years, it has been tried. Nobody wants to be told what to do with their property, how to do it, and I think that it wouldn't hurt, but I see it as not something that would be favored by the community. So I guess I would have to say no.
Okay, our new number two, Vicki French.
Well, I did not know that zoning was around, but first of all, before you do zoning, you would have to go through planning. And you'd have to come up with districts and all that, and I think that it's not something we need here. It's a small rural town. People move from the villages to this area to get away from the restrictions of zoning and planning, and I think that we zone through local laws. So if we have an issue that needs to be taken care of, we do our local laws, and we zone through local laws. We have a property maintenance law, so that helps us take care of property maintenance. We have our wind law that, now we've got that in place. We're working on the solar law. But I don't think that's anything that we need in Hopkinton.
All right, our new number three is Jody Wenzel.
I would agree that at this point in time, I'm not sure if zoning is necessary. However, I think if we are going to look to the future, to get development grants from the state, to look at increasing business or investment or housing. I think the senior housing idea is actually a very good one and not something I had considered before. But I think if you're going to look into projects like that, it may become a necessity. This community, as it exists right now, is fairly small, and I think that the laws we currently have regulate land usage fairly well. But going forward, I think it is something that, as we look for input from outside, investment from outside, it is something that we definitely need to be open to as a possibility in the future.
I do not believe there's a current need for zoning. I think I agree with what has been said, that we can address issues as they arise. You know, everybody, no one wants to be told what they can or can't do on their land, but we have to be within reason. You know, clearly we can't do certain things that hinder our neighbors. So I think zoning is not an issue at this point.
I agree. Zoning isn't an issue. I'm surprised to hear that people think it is. It's never been discussed among the board, and I'm not for zoning.
How would you envision your involvement in the budget building process for the town?
I guess I'd have to really take a look at what has been going on, or, you know, what the budgets have been in the last couple of years, and build from that, see what monies are available to us, what monies are available to us, what our revenues are, and see where we need to make cuts. Although we really can't cut too much more, I don't think it's, I guess that's my answer. I'm not a budget person, so it's a learning curve.
Well, I've had a lot of experience with budget because I did the budget for 22 years, so I know what the process of the budget is, and the process of the budget, as far as formulating it, starts very early. It starts in June with just starting to look at what you have for balances left in your budget, where you're going. It's the mailings of all of the budget sheets to all the departments, and fuel costs, and salt, and sand, and snow plows, and just looking at contracts that we have to fulfill, rescue contracts, and things like that, and just formulating everything. And I've done my best over the 22 years trying to explain the budget to the board. And when new candidates come onto the board, I went through the budget with them and tried to explain to them the process of the budget. Always was looking for input from everybody, and we did all work together on it. And trying to keep at the tax cap. Go in and file tax caps and see where are we at. You go back and file again, see where are we at today. And just preparing for the future too. We have to put money in some reserve funds. We have to have reserve funds. That's all there is to it. Because that's the only way you can protect the future of your town. So, because if you don't have reserve funds, the whole budget is always at the mercy of the next board that comes in. So you may have planned for a project, but that project is at the mercy of the next board if you didn't put that money in a reserve fund, because they can just say, oh, we're going to use it for something else. So.
Most of my experience with budgets is in the private sector. I have not done a municipal budget, but I have a great deal of experience doing budgets for-profit companies, which obviously a little bit different because they're always striving to make more money next year than you this year. That being said, I did spend about 10 years of my professional career in a position where I was tasked solely with cost savings. I had one major international corporation, and I went in, and my job was simply to find and identify and implement cost savings for them on an international scale. So this is something that I do have some experience with, not just on the ground floor, but projects and evaluating projects. What has merit? What can we push off? Where can we find savings? Without having some knowledge of the inner workings of how a municipal budget works, but we even dug down as far as getting terms with some of our vendors to push out a little bit more so you can earn a little extra interest on the money you currently have and saving money that way. It's something that I've done for many different companies, and I think that I would pick it up fairly quickly. Like I said, I haven't done one for a community before, but it's something that I would want to be intricately involved with, and I think I could bring something to that just with my experience.
I think in general, the town needs to look at their liabilities. I know recently they expended tens of thousands of dollars to upgrade the Fletcher Road because an individual moved in a piece of property that they're going to live year-round. That versus what the town will get in for tax revenue on that home. Should we consider abandoning certain roads that could cost us potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars if we have to upgrade and snowplow? And again, any budget is based on outgoing money versus incoming, so we have to get more businesses in. I mean, like NewMed, that's a great example of, those people come in every day, they eat in the store, they buy the gas locally. I think that the key to the budget is going to be having more property on the tax rolls that is not tax exempt. Again, some of the prime real estate that's farming is awesome, but the amount of it you could get for an acre with a house on it versus farmland, that would benefit the town hugely.
You have to study the previous years to find out where your expenses were, what your revenues were. You have to plan for the future. Right now, we're looking at the possibility, our highway superintendent is having issues with only having 4 men. So we're looking at issues to try to find him a part-time person to help him out. We need reserve funds. You've got to plan for the emergencies. And in order to do that, you have to know where your expenses are, your debt service, etc.
For all candidates, what ideas, thoughts do you have regarding ways Hopkinton's town government could work to build a stronger sense of community in Hopkinton?
I think that perhaps maybe putting a suggestion box in the town hall or in the town offices. And perhaps having citizens meet with us maybe once a month or whatever to perhaps give us some idea. I guess that's, email us, call us, just let us know. The offices are there. Perhaps having certain board members meet maybe at least once a week with somebody and rotate it so that we all get a feel of the community. That's, I just don't really have a sense of.
community to become more involved in local government. I don't think that our community is involved enough and informed enough in local government, and I would really like to see them become more involved. And I'd also like to see the community become more involved in activities that are happening in town, more volunteerism. I mean, we've seen things that have had to fold because we didn't have enough volunteers. And I would like to see more people get involved in helping out the fire department and things like that, because doing things like that bring the community together. Because we're working together, it brings the community together.
I absolutely agree. I think a social setting would be the best opportunity.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I think the summer days that we do is a great event, and I think that it brings a lot of people out. I know that when I first moved here, that was something that we came to every summer because we didn't really have a lot of interaction with our neighbors, and that was something that brought everybody together. And I think events like that could be expanded. Great, we do a Hopkinton Summer Days. What if we did a Christmas in the park or something like that? We don't have to go extravagant, but you can do events that bring everyone together and make it something that's worth coming to. Or even a Halloween for the kids and do a costume contest. Stuff like that to get people involved. I think you'd see more involvement in local government if you could get a greater sense of community through events like that. And I think if you could build the community, that feeling of community, especially now after the last couple of years when we did have such a divided position among residents here, I think that could really serve us well.
I agree. I think the social setting is definitely the key for neighbors seeing neighbors, getting along. I'd be curious if anybody ever looked into opening an AMVETS in Hopkinton, if that's a possibility. Some place where we can gather, maybe have an adult beverage, socialize. I think that's key. If we're only seeing each other during a heated board meeting, that's not always positive. So. We have festivals and stuff like that. I've attended a few, not as many as I'd like to, but I really think that's the key to the heart of the community is socializing. I mean, I can remember just in my short number of years that people would get together and put a house up together. That doesn't happen anymore. Now you have to get a contractor. It'd be great to come together and help the fire department out or neighbors. I think the Amish set a great example for community. They are there for each other, and I think they do have a good example of what community is about, even though it is more enclosed and shut off to everybody else.
I agree with everything that's been said. I think we need more community activities. Summerfest was a great idea. The problem is people stopped volunteering to help, and it came down to 6 different people trying to run everything. I think if we got enough volunteers, we could work with the fire department and get that back up and going. I'd like to see some concerts in the park in the summer. And even if we have to do a pass the hat to pay for people, to pay for the bands or whatever. But I think we need some social activities in order to get the community back to being the family that we all used to be.
The next question is for the supervisor candidates. Who is ultimately responsible for the budget?
The supervisor is ultimately responsible for the budget. The supervisor is authorized to appoint a budget officer, but they do not have to. So it is the supervisor's job to prepare the budget.
Supervisor is classified as the chief financial officer, so the supervisor would be the one in charge of the budget. But as Vicki said, can delegate it to a budget officer.
The next 2 questions are also for supervisor candidates. What do you feel is the most important issue that currently faces the town?
My financials. I'm concerned over the financials. I'm concerned over sales tax. That's going to be a big issue for us. It's one of our largest revenues. If we lose CHIPS funding, it's just things like that, the state funding. But I'm most concerned over the financials of the town and where it's headed.
Financials is a big issue. If we lose out on this, what we get currently for sales tax, we're going to be hurting. Our mortgage tax is down. There's not enough houses being sold. People do come here and they stay. They don't sell again. So financials would be the biggest issue right now.
Okay. Well, you answered the third question by answering the second question. The last question was about how do you see the finances. Very good. All right. This is for everybody. How would you describe Hopkinton's relationship to Parrishville?
I think that sometimes Parrishville is looked upon as the big brother. And I think that Hopkinton needs to stand on its own and not always rely on Parrishville. We are a community on our own, and we should be able to survive on our own. I know that our kids go to Parrishville School, but they also go to St. Regis Falls to school, and they also go to Fraser to school. And Hopkinton is just a small piece of Parrishville. And I have nothing against Parrishville. My kids went to Parrishville School, but I just think that Hopkinton needs to stand on its own.
Well, I'm going to look at this in a different perspective. We need our neighboring towns. We do shared services with our neighboring towns. I think we need to work with our neighboring towns. I have attended Parrishville board meetings because I wanted to see how their meetings flowed. But we can't do it ourselves anymore. We use our neighboring towns for blacktopping, for hauling sand, and we need them for other things. And we're supposed to be doing shared services. The governor wants us to do shared services to save our taxpayers money. So I am looking at that in a different perspective.
My experience really in that regard is from the Wind Advisory Board, and the Parrishville board members were very helpful to us, so I've always thought it was a good relationship. I do agree with Vicki that we need to work with our neighboring towns. It should not be an adversarial relationship. These are, unfortunately, smaller communities. So shared services, shared knowledge, and shared influence even on county government is very beneficial to both of us. And I think that we need to foster that relationship to the point where everyone benefits from it. I have not personally experienced anything negative. I simply by the fact the question was asked, guessing that there is some overtones of a not maybe the best relationship, but like I said, my experience has been good, and I think that is a relationship that we need to keep.
Being the only person from the table that has lived in both Parrishville and Hopkinton, I didn't realize there was a contentious nature between the two until recently with the wind turbine issues. I think it would be foolhardy not to embrace our neighboring towns, including Parrishville. We do rely on each other, and like was said, sharing services, that's where it's at, and that's what's going to reduce our tax burden. You know, I think Hopkinton is a great town. I think Parrish is a great town. There's no reason that they both can't be a great town. Suppose that.
I think we have a great relationship with Parrishville. Like Vicki has stated, we do shared services with them for the highway. I know the fire department works with Parrishville on training. The school has involved both towns when they were doing their safety drills. So I think it's very important to keep our relationship with Parrishville. Not only do we have a relationship with Parrishville, we send our children up there for the beach program. We couldn't afford to get our own beach. We'd have to drill wells and do all that. For the price that we send our children up there for, it's well worth it.
Okay, so I'm going to switch up the order of the questions and take this one because it's such a nice segue. Do you support continuing the summer recreation program that Hopkinton children attend at the Parrishville Beach?
I do. When I was a child in the town, I took advantage of that. My whole family did. I think it's a good program. I would like. I just think it's a good program. I would support it.
Absolutely. I think it's important that every child learns to swim and save their life. And I just think it's like Sue said, for what we pay to send our children up there, it's a wonderful program.
I have nothing but good things to say about it. My son attended for many years, and I always thought it was a very worthwhile and well-run program. I would absolutely support it.
I definitely support it. I actually was a lifeguard at the Parrishville Beach when I was in high school. My children attended the program. I would question whether there's a better one in the county, to be honest with you.
I absolutely support the summer program. Not only are we able to send our children up there, Parrishville is very good about hiring our own town children to work at the beach. My own daughter worked up there, and both of my children went there.
This is for everybody. If elected, would you be in favor of or opposed to granting a pilot payment in lieu of taxes to an industrial energy corporation or other for-profit business? Please explain your answer.
I don't support it. You know, it's a tax burden on the taxpayers. Everybody should pay their fair share. I don't think that a lot of people pay their fair share in taxes. It's too much of a burden on the taxpayers.
I don't feel it's a yes or no question. I think every project needs to be looked at, and everything has to be researched. We have to look at other areas. Are they piloted? Are they taxed? How are they taxed? I mean, I just don't think that's a question that I can answer without actually researching whatever the project is. I'm not big on giving exemptions, so I think that everybody should pay. If you can build it, you can pay it. So, but the thing about pilots, you have to, you know what your income's going to be for 10 years. At the end of the pilot, you don't know. So you have that problem. So it's hard to answer that in a yes or no.
I would agree with what Vicki said. I can say definitively that wind project is obviously the one point of reference we have here, and I absolutely did not support it for that. There was some misconception in the community about how the pilot would benefit us in that there was a lot of thought that this would be a ton of extra money when it would be offset. It's not actually just a whole bunch of extra money for the community. Forgive me, it's been a little while since I've looked at how this is calculated, so I'm sure some of you know more about this than I do, but it wasn't just an extra amount of money we would have gotten. It would be our aid that we would receive from the state and other sources would be scaled back in response to that. So At the time, at least with the information I have on the pilot that was proposed or was being talked about with the wind project, I didn't see the benefits. There was far superior benefit to taxing them at full value. Now, that being said, if there were to be a project that was proposed for this town that was economically beneficial, created jobs, did not impede upon people's enjoyment of their property and or life here, and was contingent upon a pilot being issued, I would certainly consider looking at that again. But everything I've read and all the experience I have with them thus far, I do not.
It's my understanding that pilots were designed to put people to work and to give a boost up to, you know, a small business. The idea of a multi-million-dollar company needing that to build a project, I would not agree with. You know, if something came in and offered 30 jobs for us and our children an opportunity to, then perhaps a pilot for a limited time might be a consideration. But the idea that a large corporation needs that type of a boost at our expense is ridiculous. A friend of mine expanded his winery in my barn. He got a pilot. He was able to buy equipment. He did so well, unfortunately, that he moved out and built his own place. that, in my mind, that's what a pilot's for, is to get somebody started, to help them without having the tax burden, not a multi-million-dollar corporation. That makes no sense.
I would agree. Depending on the circumstance, I would have to research to see exactly what we would get versus what the taxes would be. As it stands right now, probably not.
There are a number of questions related to the wind turbine issue. They come at the same question, and it's what do you feel is your obligation if you have a conflict of interest to let the townspeople know, or recuse yourself from voting on matters where you have a conflict?
I recuse myself. Totally.
I would follow the law that's on the books through the code of ethics, and you would go through the procedures. And if you have a conflict of interest, yes, you should recuse yourself. But I also think you need to look at the law that's on the books and make sure that, you know, everything is done properly.
I would agree. There is a law on the books right now that outlines pretty clearly what a conflict is and who or who does not have one. And if you fall into the category where the law says you have one, then you need to recuse yourself. It was also my understanding at one time when this came up with the wind law that this was going to be looked at again by an ethics board. I don't know if that's actually happened. I don't think it has yet, but just to clarify that a little bit. So that I think I would support that happening to make sure that that law was clarified and was very sound, but I think the way the law is written now is very clear and should be followed as it was written.
I absolutely agree that if you have a vested interest in anything in front of the board, you need to recuse yourself. That's how it should be, and if you were to hire an attorney to challenge that, I would question your ethical, why are you on the board? What is your reason for doing this? So I know one of the reasons that I'm running is I felt that I personally witnessed some unethical activities in the past, and was clearly not afraid to speak up about it. So I think, without question, you need to step back and not be voting on something that you shouldn't be.
We have an ethics law that should be followed. I'm going to respond to Jody's question about the ethics board going further. It could not go further because the board did not agree on whether it was a conflict of interest or not. so the county would not look at it. But I would recuse myself, definitely.
Next question is for everyone. If elected, would you consider forming a committee made up of town officials, local business owners, farmers, and the Amish community in an effort to come up with new ideas on how to best promote new growth in small business in Hopkinton?
Yes, I think we need fresh minds and ideas, and I would not have a problem with that. It would be very interesting to see how many people would step forward to do that.
Yes, I think it's better to guide us in bringing businesses to town than some of our already small business owners and our farmers and people in our town. They're the ones that are already operating, and they could guide us through the process and help us understand what's going on and help us maybe bring more businesses into the town.
I agree 100%. I think any input from the community as to how we can bring businesses to town would be welcome. And even in input from outside the community, as we were talking before about, any grants or money that was available from the state, any guidance or advice that would be available from outside sources. While we may not take all of it, or it may not all be applicable to us, if it's out there and it's available, then we should look at it. This town needs investment, it needs businesses, it needs growth, and however we can do that, I think is something we need to look at seriously.
We definitely need to utilize every resource we have. The Amish community is a great example. They seem to struggle through and make ends meet and do well for themselves. They may have insight that we wouldn't consider, and just even the high school students, they may have ideas of what would you want to stay in Hopkinton, what do you want to see here that would not let you leave the town and the community and take your skills with you. So I think the more help, the more minds thinking on a project, the better. So absolutely.
Absolutely. The more input, the better.
Now, this one may be regulated a bit by law, but will all candidates commit to obtaining multiple price quotes or estimates for any contract work that may need to be done for the town?
Whatever the laws are on the books, that's what we have to go by.
I would follow the procurement policy of the town. That's why it's in place, is to guide us through contracts, bidding process. We try to buy on state contract or county bid. It's not always the lowest. You have to go out and you have to do your homework, because there's a lot of times when the county bids and the state bids are not your lowest bid.
I agree. I mean, there's obviously a procedure in place, a law in place, and that needs to be followed. And beyond that, I think it's just smart business to do it that way. You want to make sure you're getting the best price for the service you're looking for. But at the end of the day, you need to follow the law.
I definitely agree. I think anything short of that would be opening yourself up to litigation or possibly, funds not being spent the way they're supposed to be. So I would definitely follow along to the T.
There's nothing I can add to that. I agree with everyone that yes, we would have to follow policy.
There's a question here, and I'm not positive exactly what it is getting at, but it's talking about moving away from county compensation to private insurance,
Workers' comp, maybe.
perhaps. Would, if that was something that would save the town money, I think is what the person is getting at, would you be in favor of moving to private insurance? That's an option, isn't it?
I really don't think that that's an option for the town. I don't, not being on the town board and not really knowing what the laws are, I don't think that that's something that I can give an answer to.
Well, we're currently insured if they're referring to workers' comp through the St. Louis County Insurance, self-insurance. We have discussed this many times, and we actually looked into buying out on that, and it was very expensive. Today, I actually got to speak with the New York State Workers' Comp Alliance Board, and I asked them again about us buying out on the county, and they actually don't do that anymore. So apparently, it was just such a huge expense for towns, it was not working out for them. There's just another way that towns that don't have workers' comp through a county or something now, they have the option to buy this.
This is one of those situations where I have far too little information to answer that question. And I'll be the first to admit that with any situation I encounter that I don't know enough about. I simply do not have the information to go ahead and answer it at this time, but I would certainly be willing to look into it if that was a possibility and would save the town money, certainly, but I can't really speak too much more into that at the moment.
I would have to balance the proposition of saving money compared to making sure that our employees are adequately covered, because they do put themselves out there plowing our roads and whatnot. I wouldn't want to see them shortchanged by a plan that does not cover them in the event of something significant happening to them.
As Vicki said, we have checked into it in the past, and it wasn't very expensive to buy out of the plan. So, I mean, we could still look into it in the future to see if there's a difference. But as of right now, I think we would have to stick with the county.
And my apologies, there was one question that I couldn't read now that I'm thinking, and there were a number of questions about but I think candidates have stated their positions on that clearly. So we will go through with summation and closing remarks. The candidates will have up to 3 minutes, and we'll start with Debbie.
One of the reasons why I decided to run for town councilman was I felt that this town really needed change and new faces and new ideas. I've lived here most of my life. And I came back here because I wanted my children to grow up in the type of environment that I grew up in, with family around and lots of friends, and I have lots of family around and lots of friends, and I just like being very involved in my community, and I could see that our community was really kind of falling apart, and I'm hoping that I can help with the healing process and get us back to doing a lot of activities and so on to make this the type of community that everybody wants to live in and come see and visit and maybe stay and not leave.
I'm going to make mine very short. First of all, I would like to thank each and every one of you for attending this. I think this has been a wonderful session. It's been well moderated, and thank you, Dr. Collins, for doing that for us. Thank you very much. I hope that by listening to all your questions, this gave me a great insight into what you all are thinking. If I'm elected supervisor, I will do my best to help promote our town and make our residents feel welcome. as I did for 36 years when I represented the town clerk. I tried to make everybody that came into my office and whoever I did business with to feel welcome, no matter who you were, if you're from my town, not from my town, it didn't matter.
I got involved in this election based on my experience with the Wind Advisory Board, and this is not something I ever thought I would do. To be perfectly honest, I said that when I joined the Wind Board, and I'm saying it again now, but through the process, through the development of that wind law, I saw that the town was very divided. I saw that the infusion of some new ideas and a different perspective from someone who came from a slightly different background. My job experience, my life experience is a little different than what the rest of the candidates and even the current town board is, and I thought that I might be able to do some good here. This town needs to move forward. We need progress, we need development, we need ideas, and I think in order to take that next step and to move forward, we need some new faces, some new perspectives that perhaps we haven't had before. I think there's a lot of potential here. When I graduated from college, I took a job in Boston for a year, and after a year, I couldn't take it living there, and I moved back here. And that told me a lot about this community, and I think there's a lot of potential here, and even through our differences, I think that this is a very strong community, and I hope that I have answered your questions tonight. I can tell you that this response, this showing of the community is much greater than what we expected, and I think all of us can say that we greatly appreciate you taking the time to come out. Your questions have given us a great deal of insight as to what your concerns are, and I hope that we provided satisfactory answers to you. I will ask you for your vote on November 5th, and I hope that you give it to me. I have to give myself a plug, come on. And by all means, if you have any questions for me, please reach out to me. I will stick around a little while after this to answer any questions anybody might have, and I hope everybody has a good night. Thank you.
Well, it's true, the wind turbine issue brought me to run for the board. I definitely have seen a lot more, positive things turning out. Just the turnout here is remarkable, and I think that it's it's a segue into mending fences. If I am chosen to be on the board, I can tell you right now that I will make myself available to anyone that wants to talk, regardless of the topic. I do have the understanding that being a citizen speaking and being a board member are two different things. I have the ability to work with everyone and anyone, and I would appreciate the vote.
Thank you, everyone, for attending this, and thank you, Jody and Jeff, for putting this together. There were some good questions tonight. As Vicki said, it kind of gave us a better idea of what people are really looking for. I feel that I've been available to the public. I feel that I've proven that I'm a listener and that I will do what's best for the community. Now that I'm retired, I'll be around more. I can hear more ideas and work with you some more. And I think my contacts with Senator Little and Assemblyman Jones is going to help us. I also spoke with the Assemblyman from the Watertown area today, and he's also willing to, even though we're not in his district, he's also willing to help us with whatever he can. So, like Jody, I ask you for your support on November 5th. Thank you.
Before we conclude, and if it is appropriate, somebody has asked if we could have a moment of silence for community members passed away on the street. Okay, I would like to commend the candidates on the where they conducted themselves this evening and how collegial everything everybody was, and everyone in the audience respecting the process. Thank you very much. Thank you all.